Are you ready to take your business to the next level? Every day there are countless books and articles that are published offering the key on how to make your business a success. It's easy to feel overwhelmed trying to keep up and run your business. That's why Deb Creer created the Business Power Hour. Keep up on the latest trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. Let the Business Power Hour do the heavy work for you.
Good morning. Good morning. I am Deb Creer, and I am passionate about giving professionals the tools that they need to make themselves and their businesses as successful as possible. And today, holy cow, we are going to talk about one of those success stories. We're going to be speaking with Bryan Clayton about his company and how he started it from scratch and how it is now this absolutely phenomenal service that he provides. And, the bumps, the hiccups, and all the positives along the way. So please join me in welcoming Bryan Clayton to our program today. Welcome, Bryan.
Deb, thanks for having me on. It's great to be here.
Great. Well, let me tell people a little bit about you, and then we will dive into this. So Bryan Clayton is CEO and co-founder of GreenPal, an online marketplace that connects homeowners with local lawn care professionals. GreenPal has been called the Uber for lawn care by none other than Entrepreneur Magazine and has over 200,000 active users completing thousands of transactions per day. Holy cow, like I said, very successful. So again, Bryan, welcome.
Thanks for the great introduction. That was awesome.
It's always fun when we hear our own bios. We're like, "Ooh, I like that person."
Sounds interesting.
I know. And it is interesting. So tell us, I always like to find out from our guests how they got to where they are today and how you discovered that this is your passion in life.
Yeah. I'm a lifelong entrepreneur. I've never had a job. I've always worked for myself, always had my own business, and I guess luckily so. But GreenPal is the Uber for lawn mowing. So if you're a homeowner, you need to get your grass cut, rather than calling around on Facebook or Craigslist or Yelp. You can just download our app, pop in your address, and you'll have somebody who's reliable and at a good price come out and mow your yard for you. I guess you could say GreenPal is like a 9-year overnight success. My two co-founders and I have been at it for almost a decade. Started off very humbly building the app from scratch and getting the little marketplace going, and have launched it city by city in the United States over a long period of time. And now we're nationwide in the United States, where anybody, if you're in any city in the country, you can just push a button and get somebody come cut your grass for you. Cool. Self-funded. We haven't taken on any outside capital. We've kind of just built the business off of its own revenues. And now we're 9-10 years in and have a good, profitable, growing business doing $20-30 million a year in revenue.
Right.
And before GreenPal, I actually had a lawn mowing business. I started mowing grass when I was a teenager just to make extra cash, and all through high school, all through college, mowed grass to pay my way through school. And after I graduated college, I decided, let's just see how long I can take this business, how far I can take it. And over a 15-year period of time, ended up building one of the largest landscaping companies in the state of Tennessee where I live, eventually getting that business over 150 employees, over 10 million a year in revenue. And in 2013, that business was acquired by one of the largest landscaping companies in the United States. And then I kind of rebooted. I went through a period of self-reflection.
Now what the heck do I do?
Yeah, right. Yeah. And so I had the idea for GreenPal. I was kind of solving my own problem, but luckily I didn't know how hard it was going to be. It was kind of naivete as an asset, and just put my head down, and my two co-founders and I went to work, and it wasn't about 3 or 4 years until we actually had something, but we never gave up. And that's one of the reasons why we're here today, is just perseverance and grit has got us to where we are today, where we have a good, profitable business that's growing fast.
Great. I love it. And it is one of those things where you saw the need and you filled the need. But I also love that it wasn't an overnight success. And I think that's one of the things that many small business owners struggle with, is they think, hey, we've got the greatest thing since sliced bread. Why aren't people just flocking to our doors? So tell us about, you mentioned that, it kind of took a while. What were some of the bumps along the road that you guys hit?
Yeah, if you build it, they will not come. That is one of the things I learned, is that you're right. I was kind of solving my own problem. For 15 years, I ran a landscaping company. I saw it from every angle you could see it, and I saw how inefficient it was. And then you see what Uber and Lyft and Airbnb are doing. You're like, yeah, you know what? That could exist for what I know.
Right.
And so when I built the first version, my two co-founders and I, it was crickets. We released it, and it was just dead on arrival. And one thing we realized was, when you're building a brand new product from scratch, you're inventing something brand new, you have to innovate on the problem and the solution. That's important, but that's only 50% of the battle. The other half of the battle is innovating on distribution, innovating on marketing, and innovating on how the hell you're going to get customers. And so I learned that the hard way right out the gate was, wow, we spent all this time building what we think is a good product, but now we have to spend just as much work, or maybe even more, in how we're going to market it, how we're going to get the word out, how we're going to hustle up our first 100 people to try it out. And that was very much a trial and error process. It was very much one where we started small, and we just decided, I thought, okay, if we can just get 100 people to use it, and then if I get 100, I know I can get 1,000. If I get 1,000, I know I can get 10. And that's how we got in there. We just we just started doing everything we could to get the word out. The first thing we did was we passed out flyers all over Nashville, and like 100,000 of these things, and ended up getting 100 people to use the product. And then after that, we met as many of them as we could, and learned from their feedback. And then we applied that to figure out, okay, this is how we're going to get 1,000, and this is how we're going to get 10,000, and just working our way through kind of maybe the levels of the game. And little by little, and celebrating the small wins, is how we got to where we are today.
And it's interesting, because one of the things that I tell people, because I'm a marketer by trade, by heart. And so I always say, you have to figure out who your target audience is. And you actually have two, because you have the people who use the service, and then you have the providers of the service, the contractors. So how do you deal with having two very different types of people you're trying to reach?
You're right. We have two customers, and we have to satisfy the desires of both at the same time. And it's challenging. Anytime you're building a multi-sided marketplace that connects buyers and sellers, it seems like it'd be a simple thing to do, but the reality is they kind of have different interests. And you're trying to build a product that brings them together so they can conduct business in an easier way than they could normally. And so that was one that we just do a trial and error process, try to figure it out little by little, and focus on just one thing at a time. And so in the early days, it was kind of like it's a chicken and egg problem, and we kind of faked the chicken almost. The first 5 service providers were people that I reached out to personally, and I developed a relationship with, and said, "Hey, listen, I had one of the biggest landscaping companies in Nashville, and they kind of knew who I was, and I sold it." Which doesn't happen very often. And so the first 5 or 10 or 20 contractors, they knew me.
Right. You went to your buddies.
Right. And I said, hey, listen, I'm building this thing, and I don't know if it's going to work or not, but would you use it? Would you submit pricing when people need it? Would you show up and do a good job? Yeah, sure. I'll try it out. And then in exchange, I would give them free coaching and mentoring on how to grow a landscaping business.
Oh, okay.
That was kind of how we kind of hand cranked the supplier base in the early days. And then that enabled my team and I to focus on just a couple of things. Okay, how do we build a product that consumers will enjoy using, get value from, and keep using? How do we figure out what their needs are, and how do we solve them with technology? And then kind of like almost put the supplier side on pause just for maybe a year or two. And so hand cranking one side to where you could focus on the other side is how we did it in the early days. And then once we got that side okay, then we came back, okay, now these are the tools that suppliers are telling us they need. They need better quoting tools. They need better route optimization, better scheduling. They need to get paid quicker. They need to make sure that when they show up that the gate size is the right size and their mower will fit. Like all these 100 problems we then began to get exposed to, and it's kind of ping pong back and forth, solving whatever the biggest problems were on our plate that week. And a lot of times when you're building a brand new product from scratch, you're triaging. You're just, you got 100 problems, but you can only triage.
Yeah. There's you have to figure out what your priority is.
That's right. And that's how we did it. And when you're self-funded, meaning you're building the business off of its own revenues, it kind of like focuses you on a very simple like clarity of these are the
Mhm.
2 or 3 things we need to focus on now,
Mhm.
nothing else. And that kind of adage that necessity is the
Mhm.
mother of invention is
Mhm.
very real when you're building a business and funding it off of its own revenue. So
Mhm.
that's how we did it. And it's like we didn't worry about like the million things that were wrong. We just
Mhm.
focused on 1 or 2 things at a time and tried to like pause everything
Mhm.
else, and did that over and over again over a decade. And now we've got a good product that
Mhm.
people can just push a button and reliably get this chore done.
Mhm. And it's interesting because as you were talking about this, I was thinking, there is another company that's very similar to what you do. It's called Amazon. It's got buyers and it has sellers, and it's matching those two together. And as you said, figuring out along the way. But they also knew start small
Right.
and only add when you can. And I mean can as in should.
Yeah.
Not, oh my gosh, we should add, we should add, we should add. And then you get so spread out that you don't know what you're doing. And love or hate Amazon. I mean, I'm one of those people, if there's not an Amazon box in front of my door at least once a week, they come and they knock and they want to make sure I'm fine. But it is, and I think one of the things that people don't understand, with companies like Amazon, like with what you do, is it really is, there's so many small businesses that are part of it.
That's right.
And this is a way for them to get their product, their service out there. And especially, like with a lawn care company, so many of them are very, very small. I mean, I'm assuming you might have some that you deal with that really are 1 or 2 person type of shops, all the way up to, some fairly big type of companies. But the little guys, they're not even at the spray and pray type of marketing. They're
Right.
going around putting flyers on people's mailboxes.
Right.
And so to be able to centralize this, that helps. And so tell us a little bit about the process. So if so I'm looking at your website, and I won't put it in as we do this, but it asks for your address. And so if I type my address and then click see prices, then what?
Yeah, that's exactly how it works. And to take to your point with respect to Amazon, they got started in just books.
Mhm.
And so if you're an entrepreneur
Out of
wanting
the garage, right?
yeah,
Mhm.
if you want to be the next big thing, you
Mhm.
kind of have to really focus on what can I be the
Mhm.
best in the world at, and what can I really do better, 10 times
Mhm.
better than anybody else or any other way to get it
Mhm.
done. And that's what we've done with lawn mowing services. We don't want to be the best way to get a house cleaner or the best way
Right.
to get
Mhm.
a pool service. We're the
Mhm.
best way that you can get a lawn care service come mow
Mhm.
your yard for you. And we've learned a lot from the big guys like
Mhm.
Amazon. Jeff Bezos his quote is one of my favorite quotes from him is that the thing he loves about the consumer is that they are always discontent.
Mhm.
And for me, like I love that because like that discontent that the consumer has is what
Mhm.
drives the innovation. And
Mhm.
so we've learned a lot from the big guys like Amazon and applied it to our little thing that we're doing.
Mhm.
And the thing that Amazon did was they taught the masses that you can get things done and solve problems through an
Mhm.
interface on a phone or a computer.
Mhm.
And we've kind of had to be Amazon good for
Mhm.
lawn mowing. So as a homeowner, you literally we have to remove all the friction between you and getting your lawn mowed,
Mhm.
and we make it as easy as possible. You come in, you put in 3 things: your name, your email address, and your home address. And
Mhm.
then you start getting quotes for free from lawn mowing services nearby you that are looking at your property through aerial imagery and
Mhm.
street view imagery. And then they're reading about, okay, well, this is the average lawn mowing price in this zip code, and
Mhm.
this is how many square feet the lot is, and this is how often they want it mowed. And
Mhm.
all of this is kind of handled in minutes rather than like this normal like go
Mhm.
back and forth phone calls and voicemails and
Right.
emails and text messages. Like all
Right.
of this
So
is
from
just
the consumer, oh my gosh,
yeah.
I'm not making those 15 phone calls.
That's right. You just push a button. Now I've got
Mhm.
5 quotes. Now I can read reviews, figure out
Mhm.
who I want to hire. Boom, I hire them. They come out the same day or the next day, mow the yard for you. You get a picture of the completed work. Everything
Mm.
looks good. You just push to pay.
Mhm.
And then you just push another button and set it up for the whole season for weekly or
Ah,
every 2 week
okay.
lawn mow. So it's literally like we help you with the introduction, the pricing, make a good, reliable hire, and then you can set it up and just set it and forget it. And like that end to end, like I don't know anybody. My grass is 4 feet tall. Now my grass is nice and manicured, and I've got somebody to take care of this for me, and it happens invisibly. Is what we're in the business of doing. And 99% of that magic is below the surface. You don't even see all the things that go into making the magic happen, but that's where we've gotten to in a decade. And in the early years, it was really, really clunky. You know, the guy or gal you hired didn't always show up, or they didn't always do a good job, or they changed their price after they looked at it, or you know, the million things that can go wrong. We've over time figured out, okay, this is how we adjust for it. This is how we improve the product. This is how we solve that problem. And little by little have solved the 100 or 1,000 things that can go wrong with getting this chore done.
You know, and you mentioned, you know, somebody, they like the service and they say, okay, come monthly or, you know, every other week or whatever it is. Then how do they change the service? So, you know, maybe they say, hey, oh, okay, it's end of season, I need aerated, or somebody come clean up all these leaves, or something like that. Do they go then through you, or do they then at some point, are they talking directly with the vendor? You know, how does that work?
Great question. So we are not in the business of becoming your lawn care service. So we help you.
You're kind of that matchmaker.
We introduce you to a really good service. You get that chore done. And then after that, all of these other yard maintenance services you're going to need, we make it really easy to hire that same contractor for them too. So if I'm the lawn mowing service you hire, after I mow your yard for the first time, I then have this workflow that I go through. It's like, okay, Deb's yard, okay, how much is it going to cost to trim her shrubs, clean the gutters, seeding, mulch, keep the weeds out of the beds, all of these other services you're going to need downstream. The contractor then quotes those to you. So they're kind of like on the shelf for you, so to speak, where you can then add those on to your lawn mowing visits as time goes on. And then we also kind of nudge you. It's like, hey, you know, it's fall.
It's fall. It's time to do whatever you do to lawns in fall.
That's right. You're going to need seeding, and it's going to be, you know, $280. You're going to need leaf removal. It's going to be $80 per visit. Do you want to go ahead and schedule these things? Like, you can then push a button and get all those things done. The lesson we learned the hard way was to put all of these things on the front door when you come to the homepage is a mistake, because if it does everything, it does nothing. So we kind of had to like get you into the workflow with the routine lawn mowing. And then as time goes on, layer all these other yard maintenance services on. That's the balance that works well for us. It's like you can't be all things to all people right out the gate. Like you look at like
it's confusing.
It's confusing, and you're not Amazon, you're not Airbnb, you're not Expedia, you're not this big, huge thing. So you can't have a product that does 100 different things. When you're first getting started, you have to have a product that is the best in the world at like one or two things. And that's been our strategy. You know, we're the easiest, fastest, cheapest way to get a reliable lawn mowing service to come cut your grass nationwide in the United States.
Right. You know, and you just said something that I think is so absolutely critical for people who are, you know, whether they're just starting out in business or have been doing it for a while, is pick a couple things and focus on those. And it's hard when you're the small business owner, because you want to, you know, I kind of mentioned target markets, but you want to please everybody. So you've got the people who, you know, need a little onesie twosie thing, or, hey, can you do this? Can you do that? And first of all, you want the money, but, you know, second of all, you want to please people. And so it's really hard to say, you know what, this is all that we do. You know, and so, you know, you've obviously found, you know, ways to be able to do that. But if somebody asks you that question, you know, how, you kind of answered that, but, you know, if they say, you know, oh, but Bryan, you know, they want me to do this and they want me to do that, and what do you say to them?
Yeah, so I think it's like it's an ebb and flow. Like so let's say you have a service-based business, and you know, you're a roofing contractor, or you're a home remodeling service, or you're a home cleaning service, or marketing agency, whatever. And this is your first 6 months in business, or your first year in business. That first year is very different like that level of the video game is very different than level 6, 7, 8, and 9. So in
Right.
that first year, you kind of do have to keep the lights on, and you kind of do need to do whatever it is you can do to not have to go back to your cubicle job. And you kind of have to be all things to all people for maybe 6 months or a year or maybe even 2 years, just to kind of get in the game, get some revenue going, and figure out what kind of business you're even in. And then as time goes on, and maybe you have a home cleaning service, and you're like, you know what, I've done everything from like single family homes to apartment complexes to car dealerships to hospitals or whatever. It's like, now I really have figured out that I am the best in my market at cleaning apartment complexes when they go vacant and getting that unit ready. I can make the most money at that. I'm better at that than anybody, and my crews is good at that. And I'm going to double down and go all in on just that one thing. And then after the first year, maybe you can say, hey, I'm sorry, we don't do residential cleaning. We only do multifamily. And but here are 3 or 4 other people that do that. If you hear of any multifamily work, please send it my way. And then you can really focus on that one niche and that one thing and be the best in your market at that. So it's like, I think a mistake is new entrepreneurs are like, nope, this is the only thing I'm doing, and I'm not doing anything else. And they don't get any traction on that because they didn't even really know.
And then it's frustrating and they quit.
They quit. That's right. So first year, you kind of have to be all things to all people to keep the lights on. And then, but as time goes on, you're starting to measure and observe that I'm able to keep this type of customer longer. I'm able to make more profit and margin on this type of use case. I know how to market it. I know how to talk these people's language. I have a better value proposition in this type of use case. Then you double down and you build the processes around that one type of use case. And so it's like, you come out the gate, all things, all people, and then as time goes on, you're the best in the business at this one thing. That's how it's unfolded for me over 20 years of starting 2 businesses from scratch. It's like, nail it, then scale it.
I love that. You know, I have a friend who did the same thing. He was a contractor. You know, you wanted something done, he would do it, you know, anything and everything, you know, and now he did kind of focus on residential, but I mean, that's still a huge market. As time went on, and he has now found his niche, and I mean, it's a fabulous niche. He only does, and it's like you said, he has other people he refers to if he can't do this, which is fabulous, because then you're not turning business away,
right? You're
helping. So it's kind of that win-win situation. But he now only does insurance repairs.
That's right.
And he said, you know, he discovered, you know, several things with that. First of all, it's very limited in scope. Right. You know, if, you know, insurance company will pay for A, B, and C. And he gets paid by the insurance company, you know, or, you know, he gets that check. And so, you know, that's a very fixed rate. He goes in, he quotes it. He says, you know, we will do this for this. If the homeowner wants something different, then he can decide, okay, we're going to do this. So, you know, maybe it's that they, you know, their kitchen flooded. Insurance is going to pay for, you know, a basic level of repair, but they want the granite countertops and the fancy things. Well, then he can decide, okay, we're going to do this, but, you know, here's the difference to the homeowner, you know, and so that's really given him flexibility, but it really is, you know, his market is very small and very finite, and he is very busy. I mean, that was the other thing, was once he found that niche and he became very good in that niche, people knew to turn to him. You know, they didn't just call anybody and say, oh, hey, can you do this? They knew, call this guy.
Yep. And he probably learned that after being all things to all people for a year or two. Yep. Like, I'll build your deck, I'll fix your garage door, I'll build your doghouse if you want it. You know, it's like you learn these things but you got to get in the game. You got to get in the trenches. You have to get in there and figure these things out. That's the only way you learn anything. You want to learn real estate investing? Go do real estate investing. You want to learn how to build a service-based business, start a service-based business. Like, that's the only way to learn this stuff, is to get in there and actually start doing it. You know, I see this a lot where folks will just spend a year just reading every book and listening to every podcast and going to conferences and never actually do anything. Right.
Because they're scared.
Yeah. And it's like, that's when things get real. It's like, you know, when your service or product touches its first customer, that's the only moment when it actually becomes real. It's like nothing else matters until you get something in the hands of customers and start figuring it out from that feedback. Everything else is just almost like a waste of time. And as simple advice as that sounds, this is the mistake that most people, including myself, make, is they hide behind the computer screen. They hide behind whatever it is they think is actually getting them closer to their goals. When in fact, it's like, get in the ring and start like sparring, start fighting, because nothing else matters until then.
Right. And what's really important is exactly what you said. You have to start. And it will not be perfect. You mentioned that, you spent a lot of time learning, and you still do, I'm sure, from everybody thinks, well, what if we fail? Well, so, and obviously there are things like, don't mortgage your house. There's a lot of key things that you need to do on this. But at the same point, we all need to learn from our failures.
That's right.
And it's just, that's the only way to get any better.
You don't have to go for broke, and you don't have to, like you said, mortgage your home. And if this doesn't work, I'm destitute. It's not like all in or all out. It's both. You can literally like give yourself a safety net and not have, like, if it doesn't work, you're not like destitute. But on top of that, the only way to learn is from that experiential wisdom.
Right.
It's kind of like a couple of things that have occurred to me in the last 2 or 3 years. I've tried to learn two things. I've tried to learn MMA, like Muay Thai fighting. I have a coach that teaches me Muay Thai boxing. And then I've also tried to learn salsa dancing. And so these are two
skills. Now that's about as opposite as you can get.
Right? These are two skills that I've spent the last 2 or 3 years practicing. And there's one thing I've learned from both of them. It's like the only way to learn how to fight is to spar. And the only way to learn how to a martial art is to get in there and spar with an opponent. You can read all the books and you can watch all the stuff on YouTube, but when it comes down to like getting in the ring, you better have had some sparring. And so
when somebody hits you, it gets real, right?
That's right. Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the nose, Mike Tyson. And then the only way to learn how to something like salsa dancing is to actually get on the floor and try it. And you've taken the classes, you've watched the stuff on YouTube, and you have some technical like training, but the only time it comes together is when you get on the floor and try it. And so what's the cost of failure? Well, you look like an idiot, but you can still get back out there and try again. And business is kind of like that. You get out there and you fail on a small stage over and over and over again, and that's okay. You just keep going. You're not ruined for it. But the only moment in which you're going to learn is when your service or your product touches the customer's hands, and then they tell you everywhere you suck. That's how you learn.
Right.
And it's it'd be kind of like going into an MMA fight, never having sparred. Is how a lot of people try to start a business.
And then when they're on the floor going, Uncle.
Yeah, right. Exactly. That's how it's going to end every time. So get something in the hands of customers, get feedback, and however like humbling it is, that's okay. It's not what you're getting, it's what you're becoming through the process. And that's how you get into the game, and that's how you get through that first year or two, because those are going to be the hardest.
Right. And there is a point where you do have to kind of jump. I remember when I started my business, which is Wise Women Communications. Oh my gosh, like 25 years ago. It was great. I found a need, all those various things, but I kept my day job.
Right.
Now, part of it was I loved what I was doing. I was a lobbyist. That was a very different world, especially 25 years ago. But I loved what I was doing. More importantly, I really, really liked the people that I worked with and worked for. But I had this kind of side thing going and all of this. And I met with a business consultant, and she told me some really good things. But the thing she told me was I had jumped off the diving board and then was hanging by my fingernails. And until I let go, the business was not going to be successful.
Right.
And I mean, that having the conversation with the guys and telling them that I was leaving was probably one of the hardest things I've ever done, because like I said, I liked them. I liked what I was doing, and they were very supportive. I mean, they were like, oh my gosh, we're so sorry to see you go, but what can we do to help you be successful? And sometimes that happens and sometimes it doesn't. But I think we've seen that a lot, especially during the pandemic, with people who kind of started the side gigs, or, they had the hobby and people started paying them for whatever they were doing as the hobby. Now, I mean, there are certainly a lot of people who do multiple things at the same time. But if you really want something to be successful, at some point, as my dad would have said, you have to either fish or cut bait. You can't just keep thinking, I'm just going to do a little bit. If you only want to do a little bit, obviously that's what you want to do. But if you really want to do this, then you have to be all in.
I agree. And there's a motto that I like is leverage, don't leap.
Mm-hmm.
Leverage the last year, 2-3 years of experience and maybe a little bit of money that you've put up. Like you said, you went nights and weekends for a while before you went all in. I think that's smart. I think it's smart to do that and test the waters a little bit for a year or two before you quit your day job, before you quit the full-time gig. My two co-founders did that when we started GreenPal. For 3 years. They were nights and weekends until we put up a little bit enough money to where we felt comfortable with them quitting their jobs. So I think it's like in so many things in business. It's not it's like, oh, you just jump off the cliff and hope to build the airplane on the way down. It's like maybe you hedge your bet a little bit and you de-risk it a little bit by going part-time for a while and set like a cutoff. Like, okay, if I don't go all in by 12 months from now, or 18 months from now, then I'm not going to do it.
Right.
And set a goal with the timeline, but do leverage the time maybe where your nights and weekends on the thing, and maybe give yourself some breathing room, put some money away, because you're gonna need some money to sustain yourself. Do whatever it is you can to get that done. Like, it's almost as if your life depended on it, because you're going to have to buy you some breathing room. A lot of folks are just stuck because they've got, credit card debt or house mortgage or car loans and things of that sort. And they have to have a full-time job just to keep it all afloat. There's going to be like an intense period of time where you're going to have to like really, really put into work to buy yourself some breathing room, like your life depended on it. Then you can make the big jump, let go of the diving board, so to speak. It's not like this thing where you just jump off the cliff. There is preparation leading up to that leaping moment.
You know what's down below.
That's right. Yeah. Leverage, don't leap. Because a lot of times, you leap, you already know what's going to happen. And then you're going to be even more bitter and in a bigger hole than you're in now. So it's like, yeah, you have to have the courage, but you also need to really lay the groundwork for whatever it is you're trying to do, and set yourself a goal and a timeline to get there to the starting point.
Right. And I have kind of a sad feeling about what's going to happen in maybe the next year or so, because we had so many people, because of the pandemic, that, either voluntarily or not voluntarily left their jobs. And they thought, okay, I'm going to start my own business. I'm good at X, whether it was a product or a service. And the problem was they had to make it work right away. And so I think we're going to see that a lot of people have gotten, as you were saying, a lot of debt that they have racked up. More importantly, I think a lot of them didn't actually understand what it takes to run a small business. Some of the just basics, incorporating, I still have people that I deal with, and it always kind of amazes me, but I understand, and they're usually small type of businesses who say, just write me a check and write it to my name. I'm like, yeah, which, okay, whatever. And my tax attorney would just have a conniption fit if he, but yeah, taxes. I mean, all of those various things, and know some of the other basics. I mean, how are you going to invoice people? What is your pricing even going to be? I mean, just all of those things that, as we've kind of done this, as you and I did, kind of the part-time-ish type of things, we had all of that in place. Then when we had to say, okay, now it's time, we knew what we were leaping into.
Right. And it's at times in the journey, having your back against the wall is a good thing. And a lot of these folks, are going to come up against that moment. But I'm always just baffled as to, like, we're not taught how to start a business or how to run a business anywhere in school or college. Even if you go to business school in college, you're not taught things like customer service, time management.
I know. They don't even, they don't teach people how to open a bank account and
basic bookkeeping, what any of this stuff is or means. It's like you're always indoctrinated like by fire. And so And so like, if you're willing to learn it, the good news is you can learn anything, especially today. When I was starting my first business in the late 90s, we didn't have YouTube University. We didn't, no podcast ever existed anywhere.
Right.
We didn't have blogs.
Oh, I started before I started almost before the internet. Oh my gosh.
There you go. 20-year overnight success. And so it's like, the point is that in business, you're going to be doing three things at once, particularly in the early years. You're going to be working in the business. You're going to be just wrangling everything, making sure everything happens. You're going to be working on the business. You're going to be trying to build the processes and the routines. And then you're going to be working on yourself, which is learning things like basic bookkeeping, learning things like maybe you want to test Facebook ads and what that means and how to pop up a Facebook campaign. You're going to be learning things like basic management, basic leadership, learning things like around how to figure out what your value proposition is and how to understand how to do basic copywriting. So you're going to be working in the business, on the business, and on yourself for a long time and making gains in all of these buckets. And that's how you kind of go from zero to now I have something. I've got a profitable little business going. And I think it just comes down to just, are you willing to do it, do the work and do the work on yourself and make the sacrifices? And the ones that are will make it, and the ones that aren't will have to go back to their employer with their tail tucked.
I think we're going to see in a year-ish, all of these job vacancies will get filled.
They will. And we had a grand experiment in terms of universal basic income in this country, and I don't think it played out as well as we thought it would. At the end of the day, people need to feel and want to be productive, and so I think you're right. We'll go back to a sense of normalcy. It's a weird time right now, though. I mean, have you been to the grocery store? Everything's $100.
I know. I have to go this afternoon. I'm like, is my credit card going to go on me?
It's crazy.
And that is, I think that's it is. It's going to take a little bit longer. It has been very interesting to watch and
it
to
really
see.
Has.
Because we have seen so many people that have gone off and done their own things. I always kind of laugh when people say, oh, I can't find a job. Really? McDonald's is hiring at $20 an hour. Almost makes you think, oh, I'm going to go work at McDonald's.
My hot water heater went out. And so I have spent all morning calling plumbers, and every one of them cannot get to me for 2 weeks.
Oh, I know.
And one of them said we had a phone answering service said it's going to be 23 minutes before somebody can get to you. So there's a big bottleneck in terms of demand and supply right now. It will level out, but it's funny to see how this experiment has taken.
Oh yeah. And I think this is a time where, whatever age you are, but for a lot of people in their, late teens, 20s, absolutely have got to be thinking about trade school. Hello, you're a great example, but
absolutely.
I heard on the news this morning that we are short 60,000 truck drivers in the United States.
Yep. And here's the thing. I know so many millionaires that are in the landscaping business.
Oh yeah.
And these are folks that have spent 10 or 15 or 20 years just mowing yards.
Yeah.
And they take the money that they spent, that they make in this trade, and they put it in the more durable sources of income, like real estate, investments, and just that simple thing of provide a service in terms of a trade, whether it be a plumber or a roofer, and provide that at a profitable margin. Take that money, put it to work in real estate. That's just a winning strategy to be financially independent in 10 years. Yeah. Not hard to do.
No. Well, like the truck driver thing. I mean, they were talking about minimum salaries that were over 60,000 a year. And a lot of these kids, and it was a news story, but they were talking about a specific training school. They said most of those kids have job offers before they ever even finish. So they're not even having to go out to look for jobs. The employers are coming to them. And for some people, you might not want to do whatever it is for the rest of your life, but it's a good thing to get you from here to there.
When I was mowing grass, and when I was a teenager and all through college, I knew I didn't want to be a lawn guy the rest of my life, but I saw a lane that if I could just make this 2 or 3 or 4 times bigger than it was, that I could build something meaningful. And so I think there's correlation between the least glamorous your idea, the least sexy it is, whatever you're doing, the greater your chances of success. You know, a lot of folks don't want to get started in a business because they don't want to be seen at the bottom. And this is something relatively new in the last 10 or 15 years with social media. They don't want to be seen at the bottom by their peers. And we have a tremendously fast feedback loop in terms of social media.
Oh, yeah.
These days. It didn't exist when I was first getting started. And so I think that fear of being seen at the bottom and being seen doing something that is not prestigious or glamorous holds a lot of people up to getting started in something that could free them from the job that they hate to go to every day.
You know, and it really is, a lot of it, as you were saying, was the perception. You know, they don't want to be the person who gets, you know, dirt under their nails every day and does all of this. But, you know, that person with the dirt under their nails goes and gets in their Jag and drives home. I mean, you know, it's like, well, maybe. But, you know, and
so true.
You know, I have college degrees. I, you know, support that, all those things, but, you know, it is one of those things where you need to think about it. And I think as a society, we've gotten into that, oh my gosh, you have to go get a 4-year degree. You have to come out with a boatload of debt. You have to, you know, have all these things. And, you know, so many, now things have changed a lot from when I was in college. My undergrad degree is in social sciences.
Nice.
Yeah, you do diddly squat with a degree like that. You know, and now, you know, you can get college degrees in very, very specific areas, which I love. You know, I'm like, wow, you get a degree in that. But at the same point, as you were saying, you know, there's all that other stuff that has to come in there, you know, how to start the business, how to do all of those things. And, you know, it'd be nice if schools combined all of that. So you would have kind of this overarching educational system. Hey, let's start a new business. We got this, Bryan. We can start this new business. It's going to be an overarching education, right? It's going to teach them everything they need to know. And some will come out and have dirt under their fingernails every day, and some will be bank presidents. But, you know, whatever it is, they'll know, you know, how to get from A to B to C to D.
Yeah, I think in most cases, college and the decision to go to university is in most cases a consumption decision, not an investment decision. And so it's in most cases, it's not an investment in yourself and in your career. It's 4 years of an experience and to party and goof off in 90% of the examples that I observe. And it's particularly when I went
and you
to
get
college.
Degrees in social science.
Yeah, I went to school. I went to college just because I felt like I had to, but I was still growing my business at the same time. And I remember really clear, like my friends were all joining fraternities and they all wanted to like have the fraternity like experience in school. And I remember telling one of them, I said, listen, I'm gonna build this business. And they were like, well, because I'm in this fraternity, I'll have all these business connections. And I'll come and I said, listen, I'm going to build this business. I promise you'll never catch me. And it was kind of an arrogant thing to say, but that's how it unfolded. Like, I mean, these guys never caught me because when I graduated college, I had a company.
You had a paycheck coming in, a big paycheck.
I was doing $700,000 a year in revenue, and no, they never caught me. And I think a lot of times if you're gonna not go to college and not do anything with those 4 or 5 years, you're probably better off going to college. At least you'll have something. But if you're gonna, instead of going to college, maybe go to YouTube University and learn something like conversion rate optimization and build a boutique marketing agency around conversion rate optimization. I promise your peers will never catch you. If you spend 4 years just in that one thing and build an agency just in that one thing and really work your butt off, you'll be set. And so that's kind of decision, you know, when it comes time to like, am I going to spend 4 or 5 years in college? Well, if you're not going to do anything, go to college. But if it's going to be, I'm going to start a business, start the business because you'll learn more starting the business.
And, you know, if you are in college, be thinking about what it is that you're going to do. I mean, you know, and it's always interesting to me when I talk to a junior and they tell me their major is undeclared. I'm like, what? You know? And now I can understand maybe as a freshman, you don't know. And so, you take your math, you take your English, you take all of those things and you get them out of the way. But yeah, by the time you're a sophomore, you should know what you're doing. And you should be taking classes that are specifically going to get you towards that career. And add to it. Maybe you are getting a degree in one thing, but you're going to take some business classes.
I agree. I agree 100%.
Yeah,
and one other thing I'll add on top, and it's in this same vein of kind of discussion, is that there's this myth, I think, that's being perpetuated right now, that your 20s are just a decade of self-discovery and don't worry about it. And don't worry about it. And like nobody had it figured out in their 20s. And just kind of let the time pass and figure out who you are. And maybe that's true, but in my experience, no. Like your 20s is you've got to build a foundation to where your 30s and 40s are going to take you in your 20s. If not, you're going to wake up, 35 years old and just be getting started. Right. And this game is exhausting. You really need to spend your 20s laying the groundwork. Anybody listening to this is in your 20s. You really need to be laying the groundwork for how you're going to get to third and fourth base in your 30s and 40s. And no, don't listen to the common belief that the not to pick on like Gary Vaynerchuk or some of these other people, but they're selling you a myth. They're selling you something that sounds good. But the reality is that no, your 20s are an important decade to lay the groundwork for whatever the heck it is you're doing.
And not to sound like the old curmudgeon, that's also when you need to be saving, and doing all of those things, and because, then, I mean, that's why we are seeing people in their 50s and 60s who are able to retire. That's right. They started investing when they were young. That's right. And I mean, can you catch up? Well, it depends. I mean, it depends on what you're doing. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, for so many people, it's interesting to see what they're doing and how they're doing it. I have a young friend who, I keep, I don't have kids. And so I always keep telling him, remember me, hello, remember me. And, nicest, sweetest young man in the world. But I mean, he started selling things. I've talked about him on the program before. He started selling things on eBay when he was like 6 years old. I mean, he was one of those type of people. He started in traditional business school. I mean, it was, and he went, oh, this is not for me, because it was far too restrictive. And so he's now doing all sorts of other things. But he's still taking online classes. And, if anything, there were obviously lots of bad things with the pandemic, but a lot of good things. I mean, one of the best things that has come out of the pandemic is the ability for online learning far more than we were ever doing before. And I have a friend that said she took classes from Harvard just to say she took classes from Harvard. But, to be able to maybe it's not going to lead to a degree, but to pick and choose from all these different universities throughout the world and take a class here and there. I mean, maybe you want to do something that's international, fine, take some classes in some either international studies or from some actual international type of universities and be doing that. And again, thinking, okay, here I am, 18, 19, 20 years old. What do I want to really be when I'm in my 50s and 60s? I still don't want to be, having to grind every day. Yes. I want to be able to enjoy myself.
Yes. Let that scare you. And that always scared me when I was in my early 20s, when I was working 14 hours a day mowing yards. I let that fear of 20 years from now, I'm still going to be doing this same thing, scare me into making decisions like investing in real estate, investing in other sorts of smaller companies in terms of equities. And so that is enabled me. I retired at the age of 33 and I didn't have to work anymore. And so that's what enabled me to start GreenPal was now I want to do the company I really want to build, because I spent 15 years doing things I didn't necessarily like doing. And I think that's lost on a lot of folks getting started now. And the other thing is, to your point, in terms of online learning, you can learn any skill you need to learn online now. Right. And
from anywhere. I mean, I take LinkedIn classes, or classes on LinkedIn, I should say, that aren't about LinkedIn.
Yes. Yes. But let's say you wanted to learn how to, how to be the best marketer on TikTok, and you could learn how to do that. You could, if you spent a year doing that versus 5 years going to a traditional school, you will be more valuable in terms of actual skills that you can sell to start a business or start an agency for. And so I think that's time better spent. And nowadays, like, what a great time to be alive. You can learn any of these things from people who are doing it for very, very, for in most cases free, or for what you spent on Uber Eats last week.
Right. Yeah, and to be able to do it virtually, I'm one of these. I part of the reason I do this podcast is because I get to learn every single time. Every guest I have, I learn something from, and so it's so much fun. Over the, I think your program 724ish. So I've been doing this a while,
Awesome.
And but I like that process, and so I've been thinking about it's a relatively new type of program. It's a law degree, but it's business focused, and you don't pass a bar. I mean, you're not practicing law, but you're learning business law, and it's all virtual.
I like that.
And so, it's just to kind of, I've signed up, I get the emails from a couple of places and all sorts of things, but yeah, I mean, these are world renowned programs that I could participate in and, do it from this chair.
Yes. And in business, you're going to have to be good, like 80-20 good at a dozen things. And law and legal is one of them. You're going to need to come pretty close to getting a law degree if you're going to be in business for yourself, in terms of learning just the basic in and outs of how to be a consumer of legal services. And so that kind of thing is awesome to me, that you can take 3 months, 6 months and get 80% good at law, and never have to go to law school. And you can do that same thing for accounting. You can do the same thing for marketing, for copywriting, for leadership, for management. To make it in business and build an 8-figure company, you're going to have to be pretty good at all of these things.
Right. And the other thing that business owners really have to get good at, and I tell them you need to get good at this early, is delegating.
That's right.
And that's the hard part, especially when you're starting out. You know this. It's, first of all, you think I'm the only one that can do it. I'm the only one that can do it right. That's the other key. And plus you're thinking, oh my gosh, I have to pay somebody to do it. Well, you don't always have to pay. There's barters. But sometimes it is better to pay somebody who is the expert, or even just free up your time. I operate on what I call the 15-minute principle. If it's going to take me longer than 15 minutes to do something, then I should hire it done. I'm big on, I love tinkering on websites, and we build websites. My company does, but I like tinkering and doing. But if it's a project that's going to take me longer than 15 minutes, I need to hire somebody else to do it, because it's not a good use of my time. And so that's the thing. I'm spending money to make money. And delegating's hard. I mean, I have a producer for this podcast, and she's absolutely fabulous. We're, getting ready to start our 4th year, I think, of working together. And she does everything she does, I could do. Everything she does, I did do. But she frees up probably 2 or 3 hours a week of my time doing those things. And was it hard? Yes. Oh my gosh. Just to, like I said, to give away that control. But yeah, I mean, that is part of what we learn as we go, is it's okay for somebody else to do it.
You hit on something that you have done, you is what you delegate. And that's the thing I think a lot of folks skip, is they delegate from abdication. It's like, I don't understand how to do this. You handle it. Usually that's a recipe for disaster. You have to delegate from stewardship, which is, this is how I do it. This is why we do it this way. This is the process I want you to follow. Here's the checklist. Here's what I expect for you to deliver. Here's how long it should take and how long it should cost. You handle it. That's how you delegate. And I have made that mistake so many times. When you delegate too soon, it's a disaster. And then we have scars, and we delegate too late. And that just costs us time and progress. 3 books on delegation. And this stuff's really hard, but 3 books that you should read, or that I should probably reread, everybody should read, is The E-Myth by Michael Gerber. That's all that book is about, is developing systems, processes, and how to delegate. The 4-Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss. That book is not about working 4 hours a week. That book is about processes and systems and routines and how to delegate. And then 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Dr. Stephen Covey. There's a whole chapter in that book about what it means to develop stewardship delegation and not delegation by abdication.
Right.
Those are 3 books that have helped me understand this is how you delegate the right way. And I've still done it wrong, usually 75% of the time. But when I get it right, it's a big level up.
Right. Oh yeah. Yeah. And it is hard if it's something you don't know, like accounting. I trust that my accountant is going to do everything that she's supposed to do. And it seems like she does. So, but we all have, and a big part of it is, as you said, you have to know what you want. When I have hired VAs before, it hasn't, I just said, go do. And they had, bless their, we live in the South, right? Bless their hearts.
Yeah.
They without direction, they did not do what I wanted. And then of course I was annoyed. Well, why didn't they do this? Well, hello. But when I hired my current producer, I had a job description. Just like I would if I was in a multi-gazillion-dollar company. There was a job description. There were tasks that were laid out. I said, here are templates that I have used. You may, change them, but here are the basics that have to go in. I mean, all of those various things. And so she was able to go, oh, okay, I can do this. I interviewed multiple people. And all sorts of things. And so I was comparing apples and apples. But she did a really good thing. I obviously love my producer. She was the only one afterwards who sent me an email. Now they all, sent emails. Thank you very much. Blah, blah, blah. They were trained. We all know we're supposed to do that. She gave suggestions to make improvements.
Yes.
And I loved that. I thought, okay,
proactive.
This woman has initiative,
right.
And so that was fabulous. But yeah, it's just, delegating is one of the hardest things we do as a business owner because, we don't want to lose that control. We think we're the only ones who know how to do it and we don't want to spend the money on it. Right.
Yeah. And it ends up costing you money. And that's the thing that, if you're at 6 figures, you want to get to 7, or if you're at 7 figures, you want to get to 8. A lot of what's holding founders and CEOs and company owners back is the ability to build out teams and delegate to people around them. Right. And these days it's in a way easier than ever because you can externalize what it is you want and your thoughts and your expectations better than ever and record them. Like something I use a lot is loom.com, and it's just a screen recording piece of software. And so like when I'm hiring a VA or hiring a new chief of content or hiring a new SEO lead or something like that, I'll just for 20 minutes just be on my screen talking as if I'm talking to my ideal candidate and explaining this is what I'm looking for. And in screen sharing, you see this is not what I'm looking for. And this is what I'm looking for. And here's a YouTube video I watched that kind of lays it out. It's like literally just externalizing all these things, and Loom will capture all of that. And then you can share that with half a dozen people and they can kind of get dialed into what the process is. And so there's so many more tools today that make this stuff easier. Whereas in 1998 or 2005, how would you even go about doing that? Right. You would literally have to type this stuff out on Microsoft Word or
we hand wrote it.
Yeah, and put it in a 3-ring binder and give them the binder. Literally, that's how these days that stuff's asinine. It's so much easier these days than it's ever been.
Right. And then you add in other things of technology like what we're doing here. We're able to connect. I mean, now we're not that far apart. We're really only about a 4-hour car drive apart. So, I interview people from around the world.
Right.
We can work with people around the world. I mean, technology has made things so different even than they were just 5 years ago. Part of that is the pandemic. Everything was forced to accelerate very quickly, but it's great. And it's a great time from a business perspective because you can hire people from around the world, and it's, depending on your business, you might need to, because you might need to be a 24/7 type of business. You operate in many, many states. And so you're able to do that because of technology.
That's right. Yeah, and in small, I think every business, small, medium, and
Mhm.
large, is going to have to start thinking like a tech
Mhm.
startup. Even if you're just like, I mentioned I couldn't get a plumber earlier.
Mhm.
Even if you're a plumbing company and you're trying to figure out how to market your
Mhm.
services better, you need to start thinking like a tech
Mhm.
company. You need to start thinking about, okay, I have to hire a chief
Mhm.
social media
Mhm.
marketer, and I have to hire a chief SEO strategist, and
Mhm.
I have to hire and you can hire these people from anywhere around the
Mhm.
world. But even if you're just a plumber, you're going to have to start thinking like a
Mhm.
tech company in terms of what technology you're putting in the
Right.
business. That's the world we live in
Mhm.
today, and it's only going to start accelerating more and more and
Oh
more.
yeah, hang on.
Yeah.
So cool. Well, oh my gosh, Bryan, we're at the top of the hour. This has been so much fun. I love hearing about how you went from nothing to this very large company. And it wasn't overnight. I mean, I think that's the key for everybody to remember. But if they want to learn more about your company, how do they do that? And then how do they connect with you?
Yeah, life's too short to cut your own grass. Especially if you're in business, you don't need to be mowing your yard. So just download GreenPal in the App Store or Play Store. You get hooked up with a great lawn mowing service in a couple of minutes. Anybody wants to get at me, I put all of my effort in social on Instagram.
Okay.
Just hit me up there, Bryan M. Clayton. Drop me a DM there, and I'll hit you
Mhm.
back.
And Bryan has a Y in it, Bryan.
Correct.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, I love it. Has been great. Do you have any final thoughts for everyone?
I saw a quote the other day that I really liked, so I'll share it with you. It was an interview with Mike Tyson, and he says, "Do what you hate, but do it like you love it." And he was talking about the rigorous training the routine that he went through and how he became the best in the world. And he said it's because he did what he hated, but he did it like he loved it. He got up
Mm,
at 4 a.m. and jogged every morning and did the 100 sit-ups and did the 5 hours of training a day. And so a lot of times in business, there's all of these things that we hate to do. For me, particularly in the early days, was cold outreach to journalists and PR. I hated doing it, but still did 100 a day for like
mhm,
years and years and years. And so reframing that task that you
mhm.
hate doing, but do it like you love it, can help you just get through that grind that we all go through as business owners.
Perfect. I love it. What a final wonderful thought to leave with. I'm Deb Creer. Forgot my own name there for a second. I'm Deb Creer. I've been having a great conversation with Bryan Clayton of GreenPal. And until next time, everyone have a great day.
Tune in for our next program for even more trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. The Business Power Hour, hosted by Deb Creer, is proud to be part of the C-Suite Network.